Good afternoon, and a warm welcome to this Facebook live stream for our quarterly newsletter, the Billabong Bulletin. The newsletter comprises a dedicated section named Interlocution, for which our editorial board interviews distinguished personalities from diverse domains. Today, we have the privilege of interviewing Ms. Nishtha Satyam. I would like to request Mannat, our editor-in-chief, to take us through Nishtha's profile. Mannat.
Thank you, Megha ma'am. Ms. Nishtha Satyam, a futurist and a feminist, is the former deputy country representative at UN Women in India and also the youngest at her post across 193 nations. With effect from 7 September 2021, she has been appointed as the head of office for the UN Women Office at Timor-Leste, Delhi. Ms. Nishtha Satyam led the MCO, multi-country office in India since 2018 as the deputy country representative and the officer in charge. The MCO represents one of the largest and most strategic offices for UN Women, which includes managing a large staff presence of over 40 thematic and operational experts. During her tenure, the MCO has successfully grown more than twice in its footprint programming portfolio across India, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, and Maldives, expanding programming presence to frontier areas, including women's peace and security, disaster risk management, second chance education, cybercrime, and women's access to sustainable, decentralized, renewable energy. Previously, she was also head of strategic partnerships, policy impact, and public relations at UN Women. Prior to her career at UN, Ms. Nishtha worked with leading firms such as KPMG and American Express as an economist. We are extremely delighted and honored to have you here with us today, ma'am.
My pleasure, Mannat. Thank you for that lovely introduction. Like a famous Brazilian ambassador said, only my mother would believe half of that.
I'm sure all of us are very excited to begin with this interview.
Well, so am I. I see some lovely faces in front of me. Ridhima, Mannat, Nilotma, what a beautiful name. Devyani, Amya, and of course, Megha. Thank you very much for taking the time. I am actually very excited, and I'm most excited to always be meeting students and younger women and younger girls. It really always leaves me very educated and very mesmerized. I wasn't doing anything when I was as old as you.
Thank you for the introduction, Mannat. Now let's hear Nishtha and talk all about her journey and the plans she had in mind. Our editorial board is very excited for today, Nishtha, and are ready with their questions. With your permission, we would like to start with those.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Our first question will be taken by Nilotama. Nilotama, please go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. I'm very happy for having an opportunity to speak with you today. I'm grateful as well. You serve as an inspiration for many young girls out there, including myself. My question is, ma'am, you started very young and then became the youngest Indian woman ever to represent the United Nations. How did this journey actually begin? And did you face any stumbling blocks, any major challenges, any obstacles? Since there's competition all around, there's competition in school, in college, at workplace, and since it has always been a big boys club, how did you keep yourself motivated throughout?
Thanks, Nilotma. There are many questions in that one question. So let me start by a confession. I actually didn't start early. I started pretty late in my career because when I was as old as you, I was not even thinking of who to interview and who to talk and thinking of inspiration. I was very busy watching Bollywood films, reading comics, stealing money for video games, running around the tree literally, and all that I would do is fancy about how to wear a bikini, how to wear a dupatta and look pretty. It was my main occupation of my teenage years. I spent a lot of time on the phone talking to people who I don't even remember right now. So I actually did start early. I think you girls are starting early. I actually started, by your comparison, very late in life. Let me tell you, the journey for me actually started with a dream. So when I was 6 years old, my father was studying for his PhD in Massachusetts, and we didn't have a car at that time. Many Indians didn't have a car in the US at that time. And he was very keen for me to see New York. So he borrowed a car from his friend who was Indonesian. And he took me and my mom for a ride in that borrowed car to New York. And then suddenly, I don't know what happened at a traffic signal. I just looked left, and there was this huge building with many, many flags. It looked colorful. At that time, I was 6 years old. All that I remember is it looked colorful. It looked like it was like a flag shop. There were many flags, and he suddenly got me down and he said, "Look at that building. This is the United Nations, and you have to work for the UN at some point in time." And it didn't quite appeal to me. I said, "Ha, acha, okay," and we jumped back into the car and whatever. I was more excited about the park that we were going to after that. And then almost 25 years after that, I forgot. The UN used to show up in pictures in a civics book at that point in time, and I would look at my classmates and say, "Pata hai, main yahan gayi hu," and aur maine yahan dekha hai, and that was it. And then I got very busy in watching Kuch Kuch Hota and random stuff like that, and doing nonsense with my life. Though I was a bright student, I didn't study very hard, but I was bright. But my parents always focused on me being an all-rounder. So they never wanted me to be the brightest kid who got 90%, but they used to tell me कि आपको गाना भी आना चाहिए और आपको डांस भी आना चाहिए और आप मैथ्स ओलंपियाड में भी पार्ट ले रहे हैं और आप डिबेट में भी ले रहे हैं और स्विमिंग में भी आना चाहिए. Of course, I was not good at any of that. I have never won a race in my life in sports. Though I played basketball and tennis for a very long time, and I loved playing badminton. So my childhood was as normal, as average, really, as the childhood of many middle-class Indian families, where we all went out, we all sat down to watch Close-Up Antakshari on TV, heard Bollywood songs, with very little exposure, though my parents were highly educated. My mom was a PhD in mathematics, my dad was doing his industrial economics. So there was a huge focus on education. But there was not a huge focus on just being students. There was always a focus on being, on knowing many parts of my life. So I grew up as a child listening to music, studying dance. I did forcibly Kathak for 14 years of my life, and Bharatanatyam. I learned 2 dances. I loved debates. I sang pretty okay. And so a lot of my life passed. And then, when I was about 8, I think in 2001, if I'm not wrong, the year 2000, 2001, the Indo-Kargil war happened. And my father was always watching the news, so we turned on the TV. And that year was, I think, was a year that changed many people's minds. India was going through a war, and then later 9/11 happened. And when I used to switch on the TV, I used to see Barkha Dutt, report a woman standing between army officers holding the mic, reporting from the front line. And I thought, and I thought, this is what I can do best, and I should be a journalist. So when I completed my class 12 in commerce, I went to my dad and I said, यार मुझे जर्नलिस्ट बनना है, आप जो है मेरे फॉर्म्स ले आइए, and I don't want to do economics and become all of this, I don't want to do these studies things. I want to be out there in the field. That week, some of you will not know because it's much behind your time. That week, there was a young Indian journalist in Delhi who was shot at 2:00 on the road in Delhi. So, of course, there was huge conversation on TV. Are women unsafe being journalists? Should they be out there in the road? And my father, who was very educated, still looked at me and said, "Hamari ek beti hai, we don't want her to be out on the road at 2:00. And my mother said, journalists come back at 3:00 in the night. Tumse shaadi kaun karega? I was just 18. Tumse shaadi kaun karega? So, we're not going to send you to, we don't think you should become a journalist. So you will take up economics and you will do what your father did." So that broke my dreams. It just shattered. I really wanted to be there out with the mic, and with a very, very heavy heart, I took economic honors in Delhi University. Studied. I knew that I was not doing what I was meant for. I was not playing the song that I was meant to sing. पर मैंने किया जैसे सब बच्चे हम लोग कर लेते हैं जो because we don't have that choice. So मैंने किया. And then when I finished, I gave my civil services. बहुत ही बिना दिल के, बिना interest के, I gave my civil service, and despite my lack of interest, I cleared it. And I said, अरे यार अब क्या करें? Because all through मुझे तो लगा कि clear नहीं होगा तो बहुत अच्छा है. मैं बोलूँ कि मैं fail हो गई. But when I cleared it, that was the real choice in my life. And I didn't want to take it, so I didn't take it. And I didn't take it, and I said, I want to go out and study. I don't want to be in India any longer. So my father said, so no, you've had a lot of your bakwas for now, so we're not going to listen to this bullshit any longer. I can only afford this much. तुमको अगर बाहर जाके लड़ने में पढ़ना है, तुम student loan लो. तो मैंने कहा कि student loan तो मेरे तो मैं कैसे लोन ले लूं? तो he said, नहीं, अगर तुमको पढ़ना है तो तुमको लेना पड़ेगा, तुम लोन भरो. And so I went to the first bank. I had never been to a bank in my entire life, and most of us have not gone to a bank, I think. And I turned up to SBI, and the first gentleman I met, I was so small looking. I'm not very tall, so when you see me in real life, you realize very thin. And I said, भैया यहाँ पे loan department कहाँ है students का? And he said, क्यों? And I said, I want a student loan to study. He pointed me to some person who did not see me for 6 hours. So I went the next day. And I went the next day, and I went for almost 10 days at a stretch to be able to get a student's loan. And I went out to Nottingham University, despite having a lot of admissions and places in Delhi University, which was spectacular. But at that point, I didn't realize the value. So I went, and my parents said, "ठीक है, you're so badtameez that you've got a loan by yourself. तो तुम अभी फ्लाइट लेके भी अकेले लंदन जाओगे, हम तुमको छोड़ने नहीं आएंगे." And imagine I was a single child. I said, कोई बात नहीं. And so I saved up money a little bit. So I started working for American Express. At that time I used to get 9,000 rupees. It was a job that started at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I was a single child, so I was spoiled. So when I showed my appointment letter to my parents, they said, तुम 12 बजे नहीं उठती, तुम 4 बजे की नौकरी के लिए सुबह उठोगी. ये एक दिन का बकवास है. Tomorrow you're going to be fine. तो वो पहला दिन था मेरी जिंदगी, क्योंकि मैंने सुबह जाने के लिए रात को कपड़े निकाल के रखे. I took out my clothes, I ironed them. I said मेरी 4 बजे कैब आएगी, and I have to go to work. And I knew nothing. I didn't even know how to unlock a computer. I was hardly maybe 19 and a half, 20. And they looked at me and they said, and then subah I got a call. I had a mobile. I got a call and said, "Aapki cab aa gayi hai." My parents were sleeping, so I went and woke them up. And my mother said, "Huh? Are you seriously going to go to work to Gurgaon from the other side of Delhi at 4 in the morning?" I said, "Meri cab khadi hai bahar. I can't be late to work the first day. I have to go." And there started my journey of discipline and of knowing that if I wanted to do something, I was capable of doing something. So my first salary was actually 8,000 rupees in 2006. With that money, my parents were of course extremely upset, so they refused to buy me a laptop. So I bought my own laptop, my first laptop. I think it was some 25 kgs at that point in time, that laptop. That's all that I could afford. So I had a laptop, and in 1.5 years, I managed to get a loan from SBI, and I said, I will go out. I had flown out internationally, but I'd never gone out alone. And at that point, the air hostess asked me, "Do you have someone with you?" I said, "मैं हूँ बस, मुझे window seat दे दीजिए." And I think I was so nervous. I watched movies throughout that flight. TV got down. It was so cold in London. It was so horribly raining. I had never seen London. It was so expensive. The first bottle of water I went to buy, I was like, I can't even afford water. What am I going to do? तो उस वक्त मेरे मन में ये था कि अब क्या होगा? मैंने कर तो दिया, अब क्या होगा? So I called my parents. कोई WhatsApp नहीं होता था उस वक्त. I called my parents and I said, "Ki main pahunch gayi hu and I'll update you." My parents seemed very chill about it. From there, I picked up a cafe where I could serve in the morning, in the evenings, and study in the morning. तो मैंने कहा, एक बार तो मेरे मन में आया कि ये कैसी जिंदगी ये कैसी जिंदगी है, why do I have to do it? I could have been an IAS officer in India. मैं यहाँ बर्तन किसी और देश में. What the hell is about my choice? But the amount of learning I had in those, the amount of learning that I had in those 4 years was incredible. I wrote my thesis. I came back. I found a job with KPMG, and I very soon became their chief economist at 29. And one day, while I was working for a project for a corporate, I was very frustrated. I also got married very early, so that that marriage is not an obstacle. And I got married twice. This is my second marriage. I got married when I was 23. And I had 2 in-laws, at the start of my journey who were sick with cancer, both at the same time. So I came back actually to take care of them. And I said, "मैं और कुछ नहीं कर सकती हूँ, मैं KPMG join कर लेती हूँ." So जब मैंने join किया, I joined very quickly. I rose to be their chief economist. And one day, while I was sitting, managing family and everything, I went to my boss, who unfortunately left us this year, and I said, "Akhil, I'm very frustrated. I can't be doing this at home, and I'm still very young." And he said, "Koi baat nahi. Aap 10 din chutti le lo, don't leave your job. Keep doing what you're doing." Those 10 days, I think, were a lease of life, because I went on from being a job seeker to a career seeker. I think most women spend a lot of their lives being job seekers. Because हमें यही सिखाया जाता है कि आप तब तक काम करें जब तक की जरूरत है. But we're not taught to live life for ourselves. But we are taught to live lives in support of others' lives. And I think that's when I was just sitting on my laptop and I said, "Yaar, mujhe maza nahi aa raha. I was made for bigger things in life." And not that KPMG was a great job, but I thought, "Mujhe maza nahi aa raha, main kya karu?" But then I went to the loo, I was just standing around, and that scene of seeing so many flags came back to my mind. और मैंने जल्दी से आके अपनी सीट पे गूगल किया UN in India, and I said, UN की नौकरी थोड़ी मिलती है, पता नहीं क्या करना पड़ता होगा. I had forgotten that I had won many battles in my life. I'd cleared the civil services, I'd gone out, and I think women usually don't realize how bright we are and how strong we are, because we're not taught to realize it. We're taught to undervalue our skills. And मैं वापस आई, मैंने फटाफट गूगल किया, तो उसमें जो पहली नौकरी थी, I don't know what it was about. I quickly matched my job description to match it, and I applied. And one day I got a call from a landline number, and I never used to pick up landline numbers in those days. And it said, "Ma'am, we are calling from the United Nations." And my heart stopped. And the first thought that came to my mind is, "अरे बड़े तमीज वाले हैं, इन्होंने नौकरी ना देने के लिए भी फोन किया है मुझे." So I said, "Thank you very much." And he said, "अरे, ma'am, we want you to come here for an interview on day after tomorrow or some 3 days." And I said, "Acha." And the first thing that came to my mind is, "मेरे पास तो कपड़े नहीं हैं." Normal things that we're taught to think. And I went back. I took a half day, and I went back home. And I told my father, and my father for the first time was very excited about what I was actually going to do in life. And he printed so many things for me to read. And those 3 days, I locked up myself in a room reading. Of course, I didn't clear that interview. So I went and I sat in a bench of very, very astounding professionals who I deeply respect and admire and attribute my UN journey to. And one of the panelists on that board asked me, "You're very young, you're making good money in a corporate, why do you want to work for the UN?" कुछ मैंने बोला जो जैसे मिस इंडिया टाइप आंसर्स होते हैं ना, कि मैं अपनी माँ के लिए और अपने देश के लिए, इस टाइप का मैंने कुछ बोला without really realizing what that meant. But soon enough, I started believing in what I actually said. And I think that was transformation number 2 in my life, that you start saying things that you may not believe, but then you start believing in those things. And like they say, if you conceive it, you will will it. If you will it, you will deed it. And if you deed it, you will achieve it. So I think It started out with a thought in my mind, or obstructions तो हर तरीके की थी, challenges हर रोज की थी. The first time I didn't, from simple to big, simple challenges. The first day I was going to American Express job, I didn't know कि रास्ता क्या है. उस वक्त ये GPS वगैरह नहीं होता था. From getting up from a lousy girl who's getting up at 12 in the afternoon, lunch is served, rolling on the bed, watching TV, listening to music, suddenly to getting up at 3:30, taking a shower, ready for work, packing my own lunch. Even that was a challenge. Giving the civil services was a challenge. Striving for something was a challenge. So everything, marriage was a challenge. In-laws were challenges. Parents were challenges. My own self was sometimes the biggest challenge, because I was always constantly thinking, I'm always running around this ambition that I have of I want to be something and I want to do something. I don't know if that's the person I want to be, because हम सबको सिखाया जाता है कि आप खुश हैं, give birth to kids and have a family, which is all very, very valuable in life, let me tell you. But हमको, contentment for women is taught very differently. You're asked to be content if your personal life is going well. मैंने सोचा कि I'm making so many changes to my life and traveling here and there. And so, my biggest challenge was by myself, my mind, what I believed, what was taught to me. The challenges were more, और जब मैं विश्वास करने लगी, when I started questioning, everybody else started accepting it. The whole challenge was until I was keeping quiet. और जब मैं बोलने लगी तो people started saying, हाँ थोड़ी सी, अभी she looks a little conky in the head, but ठीक है, she's ambitious. And I'll give you a small example to end my answer here. I never thought I'd be the deputy country rep, but I would step into leadership in the UN at that point in time. I was hardly 31 when I अभी आप बहुत young हैं सब, तो आपको 31 लग रहा हो बहुत दूर है, बड़ी जल्दी आ जाता है. Let me tell you, बड़ी जल्दी चला भी जाता है, and you keep going on. When our executive director, our former executive director, Madam Fumzile, who used to be in the leadership of South Africa, I had applied to the position of deputy country rep for India in the United Nations. And जब आई तो मैंने बहुत अपनी हिम्मत इकट्ठा करके मैंने उनको बोला, I said, ma'am, I'm very young, but I've applied for this job. Or imagine she leads 193 countries, and I was actually picking her bag and running around and trying to assist her with her trip. And I said, I've applied to the deputy country rep, but I'm only 31. And she looked at me and she said, I don't understand this about women. If the president of France could be 39, why can't you lead a country at 31? And I looked at her, and I had tears in my eyes because I didn't think like that. She made me think like that. मुझे तुरंत बड़ी बहुत confidence आया. I was like, huh? Of course, the president of France is 39. Why can't I be 31? Suddenly, I had spring in my feet, and things came back to me. And so challenges are not far in view. Challenges are every day. When it's about leadership, you're fighting biases, prejudices every day. You're fighting your own biases and prejudices every day. कभी-कभी बहुत डर लगता है. The first time I stood in front of 3,000 people, आपको डर लगता है because आपने कभी वो किया नहीं. जब मैं पहली बार टीवी पे आई तो मुझे डर लगा. मैंने पहली बार जब आर्टिकल लिखा तो मुझे डर लगा. That is the actual thing. I feared it कि क्या होगा इसके बाद, कैसे लोग react करेंगे. But when you call out your dreams and when you make them known, you are also known for it. And everybody else also around you also knows that you're a woman with a mission. And I think that really is my message to all of you in my struggle, is that never, never, ever, 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 ever give up on yourself. You can give up on anybody else, but never give up on yourself. And I think that's what I've learned. और ऐसा नहीं है कि अब मैंने learn कर लिया तो मुझे रोज, every day I'm reminded of it. No, every day. Your life is a project. You have to work on it every day. Like we study every day, we do things every day. So you have to tell yourself and remind yourself of your dreams every single day. And I think that's when it becomes a success story कभी when we articulate our dreams, we're always waiting for that moment. हमें डर लगता है दूसरों से, right? When somebody is going to look at you and say, कुछ भी, like my mother used to say, कुछ भी. I used to tell her, मैं UN की SG बनूंगी, आप फिक्र मत करिए. And she used to say, कुछ भी बोलते हैं, ऐसे कुछ भी नहीं बोलते हैं. And actually my advice to younger girls is कुछ भी बोला कीजिए, please. Because बड़ा मजा आता है पहली बात तो कुछ भी बोलने में. और दूसरी बात, if you say it enough, you will start believing in it. And if you start believing in it, I think the job is half done.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that answer. And I believe what you said, it actually shows that you always have to trust yourself, if not anyone else. And you're on your own. And like when you were talking about your high school days, I'm literally like, my mom wants me to dance, my mom wants me to paint, my mom wants me to give maths Olympiad, science Olympiad, my mom wants me to do good at studies too, the average. And she says, like, she does not, like you said, no mother or parent wants you to be the best, but they always want you to gain knowledge in your life. So even in high school, we have so many things to learn around us. And ma'am, you're completely like your words, your story, it's so inspirational for all of us here at editorial board. And it's the first time our whole student council, it's all girls except one boy. So we always keep on, we are like, his name is Shivardhan. We keep on just saying, Shivardhan, you are, and he's like, I'm Kafi, I have to prove, and we always like, Shivardhan, you always have to prove yourself here. But he's like, no, I'm happy to be a part of this team. You all are great leaders, and I'm happy to be part. And he really appreciates us for that matter. So this is the first time in Billabong, I feel that the whole student council, it's all young girls, young leaders. And first time, I think we are all grade 9. So it's first time we are actually taking up leadership roles. So it's thank you so much, ma'am, that I was just into your story. I was just lost in it, and I was just wondering, because it takes a lot of courage also, like you said, you have to give up your civil services job. So you have a very strong willpower, ma'am. Thank you so much.
No, it's my pleasure, Nilotma. And just to add to what you also said, जब स्कूल में जब हम prefect बनते हैं, head girl, head boy, when we take up leadership roles, we don't realize the value of that. But I can tell you, I'm close to 40 right now, so school is far behind. But I can tell you that when you grow up, these are moments you remember, because these are the founding stones of leadership. I've actually at one point in time thought that one should map the journey of those who took up leadership positions in school. Is there a difference? But I can tell you for sure that this is the foundational training. School is the foundational training, and the fact that 5 of you, along with the gentleman that you just named, the fact that all of you are in leadership roles, I promise you that even if you don't do anything extraordinary, you will still be extraordinary, because your founding stone has been laid, and it has been laid very well. So I'm really glad that you're taking this role very, very seriously, and are doing it with so much heart and so much pride, because 40 years from now, even if you become whatever you want to, let's say, whatever you want to be, let's say you want to be an investment banker, even if you become the greatest investment banker in town, your moment of pride will be maine school mein ye kiya. And it will stay with you. So I'm really, really happy to see that you're taking this very, very seriously. Congratulations.
Yes, now, indeed. And we realize it at this moment when we ourselves are in school. But like you said, you may not realize it at that moment, but in the future, when you look back, you just remember all those fond memories. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, once again.
And very well said, Nishtha. That must have been very tough for you, I'm sure. And I know you are tougher. So I'm sure it must have been a huge deal to reach the place where you are at. And from that, we'll move on to our next question, which is by Devyani. Devyani, please go ahead.
Yes, before I start my question, I just wanted to thank you for such an awe-inspiring story and storytelling. And it's just such an honor to be, even interviewing you right now. Thank you so much, ma'am.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah. So my question for you is, in your career, you've led a lot of projects, like the implementation of the government co-finance program on decentralized renewable energy, women's entrepreneurship, and women's participation in the governance of Bhutan. Prejudice lurks in the shadows of these achievements. Was there any particular project where you overcame such obstacles and established yourself?
Of course. First of all, let me congratulate you for looking extremely fashionable. जब हम स्कूल में थे तो ऐसे बाल allowed नहीं थे. I don't know if it's still that I'm so far away from school. We had to pin up our hair with bobby pins all the time. So congratulations to your teachers. Really, I think school has to be a fashionable place. But okay, coming back to the question. Yes, I think in everything that you do, the world always reminds that you are fighting prejudice, right? Gender inequality is not a default setting. It is not by default that we all believe. ऐसा नहीं हो सकता. 50% of the population doesn't have the same skills, it is being taught to us. So gender inequality is a design setting, which means that we have been taught, we have been conditioned to believe that women are not just different, but also inferior in so many ways. And we have often confused the difference between sex and gender to limit the roles of what women can do. We have been taught women have been taught to not ask. The world has been taught to not give till you ask. So just so many things. So when you actually start working on the issue, everything, you realize the prejudice from small things to big things. When I first became the deputy and I walked into a government office, and of course, I was much thinner and I had long curly hair. So I used to look, I didn't look like the typical UN person who would walk in. I used to be smiling because I was young, so carefree. And the moment I walked in, the gentleman looked at me and he said, "Aapki boss kab aayenge?" तो मैंने कहा सर मैं ही हूँ बॉस मुझसे ही बात करनी है अभी आपको and sometimes from prejudice like that to the fact that prejudice on working for women, we all have an idea, we all love to tell women how to live their lives, right? We all love to tell them कैसे बैठना है, कैसे उठना है, कितना हंसना है, कितने बाल खुल सकते हैं, किससे बात कर सकते हैं, क्या खा सकते हैं, कैसे दिखना है. And then we also have so much so, we feel so entitled to giving women ज्ञान that उनकी empowerment भी हम ही डिजाइन करते हैं कि अगर आप कमा रही हैं तो आप empowered हैं. आप अगर एक किस्म की, if you're wearing a certain kind of dress, you're empowered. If you're choosing certain kind of clothes, you're empowered. If you're getting married, you're empowered. If you have kids, you are. If you're divorced, you're not. Or so many things. So many things, right? We are very prescriptive because we have that liberty of being prescriptive for women because we think we are entitled to tell women how to live their lives. So prejudice starts from there, and once you start working on the ground, you will realize that किताबी तरीकों से कुछ नहीं actually में जिंदगी में होता. The world works in different ways than what mostly books tell you. So I'm going to give you this one instance जो बहुत बार बहुत सारे क्योंकि मेरे लिए वो it's funny but it's also very enlightening. And this is linked to the reference that you made on women in governance. So हम जो है we used to train women in panchayats. तो जो राजस्थान में हमारा काम था तो उस वक्त महिलाएं जो है पल्ला करती थी. And we used to tell them आप पल्ला क्यों करती हैं. We used to work with the khap panchayats to say नहीं पल्ला हटवाइए. But most women who still did the palla were still handling their finances. They were still taking calls at home, right? So the first learning for me was to not go by what to not fully judge the book by the cover. We were working with this woman called Seema, and when she was elected in the first few years, because the Constitution of India gives women a reservation, so she was elected through the reservation. So जब भी हम लोग जाते थे, she used to turn around us and she used to say कि मैम मैं चाय बनाती हूँ, आप मेरे हस्बैंड से बात कर लीजिए, या मेरा son-in-law या husband जो है आपको गांव के account समझा देंगे. I'm going to go inside and cook for you. And I said, I'm here to speak to you. You are the elected representative, and I want to hear from you. For many years, it continued like that. And then if you actually look at some of our pictures in our work with the panchayat, you'll see that her palla went from here to here to here, and then off. But that's not the strongest moment. I also show you how I'm giving you this example to show you that prejudice works in many ways. Right? It just doesn't work in ways that we think. Sometimes it even as the most educated, informed feminist, you can have a prejudice because it's so many centuries of grooming. It's also about the intersection, not of gender, but of gender, class, caste. It's also the bringing together of everything. An empowered urban woman will always look at a rural woman and they think, "Kaisi zindagi hai iski, look at her." In so many ways, they're so much more smarter and so much more independent and so much better than some of our lives, right? But this example I'm making you, so Seema Didi ke saath hum log kaam karte the, and we worked with her for quite some time, training her on finance, training her on gender, training her on violence. And then many years after we worked with her, we could see that change in her. Then finally, I used to be with UNDP at that point in time, and the UNDP had its highest administrative person visit India. तो उन्होंने कहा कि भाई मुझे women in governance का काम देखना है. So we said, okay, we'll take you to Rajasthan. And we did all the field work and all the intelligence and all the drama of a high-level person coming, all the setting and all the bouquets were made. And कौन देगा और कौन पिलेगा और कौन facilitate करेगा गाँव में, सब everything was done. And we took Madam had arrived and we took her there. And we started walking because there's no road, so we walked about 100 meters, 250 meters into where the Shamiana was in older times. And there were women welcoming her with a garland, putting a tikka on her in natural Indian cultural customs, and we received her and we took her. Then I was going to the stage, but Seema was nowhere to be seen. So I said, "Arey, Seema is the mainstay of the meeting, and why isn't Seema around?" So I was, of course, getting nervous as a young girl because you're arranging a very high-profile visit. And then on that stage, there were 3 chairs, and in beach ki chair, it was one of those shadi chairs that you have. It was a velvet, big wing chair. And so I said to my boss's, my super boss. And I said, go to the stage. And of course, naturally, when she got to the stage, she said, "Namaste." Everybody clapped their hands, and she went and sat on the wing chair. Or some may say, I could see Seema coming in a brightly colored sari, had all the colors of the rainbow, like typical Rajasthan. She had a thali in her hands. And then she came to the stage and she called me down. She said, "Didi, idhar aiye to." So I went down and said, the stage is set, everybody's clapped, and photographers are ready to take the moment of the day, and I don't know why Seema is not coming up. And हाँ Seema. So she came to me and she said, "इनको बोलिए वो मेरी chair है, यहाँ की प्रधान मैं हूँ." And that moment, tears rolled down my eyes because it was a moment of change. It was a moment of centuries of questioning. तो पहले तो मुझे डर लगा कि मैं कैसे बोलूँ ये इनको. But then I thought that this is probably the most wonderful result we will ever achieve in life. So I went to her and I said, "बहुत डरते मैंने कहा, ma'am, the elected woman representative is saying that this is her chair and she is the pradhan here and not us." And she said, "Oh wow!" And she clapped her hands and she had petals in front of her and she threw it up in excitement. And she went down to welcome Seema. And I think that story is a story of prejudice, right? A story of also valor and courage and change and transformation, but also the fact that prejudice can be everywhere. If you are a padhi likhi mahila, you think someone's lesser than you, or we automatically readjust, right? We always readjust to inequalities because we've been taught to. And prejudice can come in many forms, in many forms. But the basic of all of this is that women must have voice on the table. Like they say, if you're not on the table, you're on the menu. So women must have voice on the table. Women must have choice. It doesn't matter what choice you are making. as long as you are making that choice. And women must have agency, which is the ability to negotiate for themselves. And I think we have to check ourselves every time we do something, that are you facilitating voice? Are you giving choice? And are you lending agency? When I say lending, it's not an actual term of the word, but are you ensuring agency for women? And I think that's my prejudice check metrics. But you're right, prejudice lurks in the shadow of everything. We must identify it, we must call it out, even if it doesn't work for us. We cannot expect, हम बहुत उम्मीद करते हैं आदमियों से, to give up their privilege. But giving up privilege is one of the most difficult, absolutely difficult things in life. And we must ask for it when we also handle power differently, equally. So we must call out prejudice, identify it, and make sure we all have our own checks, make sure that we counter it. I hope I answered your question, Devan.
Yes, ma'am. And it is an amazing story, even though it is a story of prejudice. It shows the confidence in women of power and them standing up for themselves. And even though it was something that has happened and it should not happen, but still shows that self-confidence in them, and that is still so inspiring for young women like that.
Fair point, Nishtha. You gave us a couple of truth bombs, and I would like to add some facts to the mix. Our children here at Billabong High International School are quite interested and are working towards initiating SDGs. And we have had a couple of sessions on them. I suppose you can resonate with this idea as SDG is one of the prominent goals of UN. So right now we're falling short of time. So we'll move on to our next question. It will be by Amya. Amya, please go ahead.
Okay, so before I go ahead with my question, I would just like to say I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to talk with you. And I can actually feel your words through this laptop screen, and I got goosebumps listening to that story. And it's very motivating to see a woman take charge. So I would like to go ahead with my question. And my question is that India does not criminalize marital rape. In recent weeks, courts have given conflicting rulings on marital rape, resulting in renewed calls for criminalization of rape within marriage. What are your views regarding this?
I think there can't be two views on rape subject to where it happens. I think if it was not about women and it was about men, by now we would have had an entire handbook on how to handle this, right? Because this is crime against women, we're still sitting here and debating कि crime कहाँ होता है तो ठीक है. अगर आपके घर में होता है, and if it happens to through somebody it's okay. So I cannot have two views on that. I think marital rape is a crime. Any form of rape is a crime. Crime anywhere is a crime. Rape anywhere is a crime. And let's remind ourselves, and it's also something that I want to reach out to women and girls of the world, because I have gone through long periods of my time of abuse. 93% of crimes against women and girls is by those we know. It is not by somebody like our elders and parents make it. कि वहाँ चली जाओगी तो अंधेरे में कोने में क्या हो जाएगा. वहाँ तो बहुत बाद में होता है. A lot of retaliation against women is inside the circle of trust, is by those we know. And because we know them, it doesn't make it okay. Because we are in a marital relationship, it doesn't make it okay. Nothing makes it okay. Nothing. Let me say that again. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. There cannot be any negotiation around the act of crime. कभी किसी आदमी को कुछ होता है तो हम negotiate करते हैं. आपने इतनी negotiation कहीं और देखी है किसी चीज के बारे में कि ठीक है या सही है या गलत है? No, right? Because it's about their body, it's about their dignity, it's about their pride, their integrity. And so it doesn't matter who does the crime. It is about who it is done to. Right? For very, very long, we've had a perpetrator-focused worldview or a discourse. We have to have a victim-based this cause. So it doesn't matter who does it. It matters that it is done to you, and that is not okay. And this entire conversation about the sacrosanctness of marriage, कि कुछ ऐसी जगहें हैं जहां महिलाओं के साथ आप जो चाहे कर सकते हैं. नहीं, ऐसा कोई इंस्टीट्यूशन नहीं है जहां महिलाओं के साथ. इनफैक्ट ये इंस्टीट्यूशन तो कतई नहीं होना चाहिए, because it's an everyday institution and there's nothing that justifies it. So I think the negotiation around women's autonomy, women's bodies, women's right, women's well-being has to stop. This is non-negotiable. This is absolutely non-negotiable. And I think there have been conflicting judgments from different high courts. I think it is time that India is picking up that as a conversation. We are working very closely. As UN Women India, we were working very closely with government, state, and center to be able to bring this issue to attention. And hopefully we will see the light of the day soon as an emerging superpower, that cannot be a negotiation on women and their bodies. This is not an battle. This is not open for a battle. This is not open for negotiation, right? And I think we have to take a rights-based approach. You have the right to be safe in your own damn house, right? And that is not open for debate. Is it? Can it be open for debate? Should it be open for debate? Not at all. And so that's my only view, and I think that is the only view that people should have. And like I said, let me say it again. 93% of violence against women is from those we know, those we let enter in our circle of trust. And that to me is the most breaking statistic, heartbreaking statistic in everything else that I read, because it's very difficult if you have to be alert at home. And we wouldn't want that kind of a world for you. We wouldn't want that kind of a world for children after you. Unfortunately, some of us have had to live in that kind of a world, but we're fighting it, and we're fighting it every day, and we will see the light of day. And I'm really glad that you asked me that question, because it's very important for you to know in your school that the only thing that is sacrosanct is your own body, your own voice, your own agency. Nothing, absolutely nothing else.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for that answer. And I completely and absolutely agree with what you said. And I feel that women as humans deserve better. Like, they don't deserve this. We don't deserve this. We deserve better than this. And I completely agree that it is indeed heartbreaking to know the sad reality that that goes around every day. There is some or the other news in the paper that just breaks you from inside, and it does have a deep impact. It chips you off bit by bit, but it does have a really deep impact.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Ma'am, I just like to add a little bit here. My mom took me to watch two movies. One of them was Pink and the other Thappad. And she made me realize that, no means no. Whoever you say that to, whoever anybody whom you trust with your heart, like it's even in your house. If you tell them to say no, for them, it is important to understand no means no. And I believe Thappad was supported by UN Women itself. It was out just before the pandemic. So I saw it in Prime Video with my mom, and we both sat together and we just realized, she just made me understand, Nirodhama, that there's nobody above you. There's nobody above your dignity. You need to honor yourself. Otherwise, no one else will. You said, right, that if you keep yourself on the table, otherwise you'll be on the menu.
Yes.
So that's very important, that you need, it is because, I was just going to this doc which says that, when women achieve, they just blame it on their ambitiousness. They don't take credit for it. But it is wrong, right? Because you are yourself, you need to make yourself important more than any other thing in the world.
Absolutely.
You are the most important person in your life. You are the heroine of your life, not heroine, the hero of your life, because that's the right word.
Yes, you're right. You're the director of your movie, right? And you got to be that lead star. Nobody else is going to make you that lead star. So you can be the villain, you can be the lead star, you can be the supporting cast, but there is nobody absolutely above you who takes a decision on your life, your integrity, your sense, anything really to do with you. And we're very very proud to have partnered with Anubhav on Thappad. We also partnered on Padman. We partnered on Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara. So in my tenure at UN Women India, we really made sure that we reach out to audiences through films. And I'm really glad that, it's reaching out to younger girls, because that's the message that we wanted to pass. So thank you for watching the right movies with your mother. Congratulations to your mom too.
Yeah,
And also,
thanks.
ma'am, before you go to another question, I just wanted to when you said that these things only happen mostly happen with people that you would already know. So it reminded me of the sentence that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said. I'm sorry if I pronounced her name wrong. And she was sharing her trauma story, and she said, "You may not know that you know a survivor, but it's highly likely that you do." And that just reminded me that it's just so bad.
Yes.
Things happen to
It's so upsetting.
literally everybody.
Yes.
The people that we know, and
so many times we see our moms adjusting. We see it. We see them making, we see them, we see them working around a man's availability, man's temper, man's mood. It's very boring, actually. So I hope none of you will do it. And it's not that I have not done it in life. I have also worked around my husband's temper, his mood, his. आप जिंदगी में सीखते हैं over a period of time. We were not having these conversations when we were as old as you. We were exactly being told, even in my generation, to keep it shut, to make sure we're running families. That was seen as the only success metric for a woman. And we were taught to do whatever it takes to keep the household together, because then you're a good woman. So we have a poster in UN. We used to have a poster in UN Women. It used to say, good women go to hell and bad women go everywhere else. So some of us may make difficult, some of our mothers or sisters, women, teachers we see around may be making it very difficult. And these are not easy decisions to make in life, let me tell you, because we all want that happiness. We all want that. We've all taught on what a happy picture is. So sometimes, but never, ever, ever let go of yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Nishtha, for saying that. Actually, women are still subjugated, if not physically, at least mentally. And to change that would require a significant paradigm shift.
Yes.
So, yeah. Now, since we are running short of time, I would ask Mannab to pose the next question, please.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Nishtha, we are having a very important conversation here, and that horrifying statistic you mentioned, that reminded me of a speech by Hillary Clinton, which was given in 1995 at a UN convention, and how it mentions that women's rights are human rights and human rights are women's rights, and we can't separate them for long. And that was 1995. It's 2021, and we still see that around us. And you had mentioned Miss Seema's story. So in relation to that, there is reservation for women in panchayats, in rural panchayats in India, but there has been the Women's Reservation Bill for representation in the Lok Sabha at the highest level that has for long been contested. So to increase women's representation in politics, especially at the highest level, what are your views on having reservations for them? Do you think this decreases their perceived competency?
I'm really glad, Mannat. Somehow I have this tremendous liking for you as soon as I see you. Men have an automatic reservation. We don't realize it because it doesn't come across like that. But men have an automatic reservation, right? और दुनिया में अगर आपको आदमियों के लिए कुछ करना हो, तो हम कभी भी ये सवाल नहीं पूछेंगे कि इससे उनकी कॉम्पिटेंसी अफेक्ट होती है क्या, अफेक्ट हो. ये सब कुछ जो हमारी ट्यूटरिंग है, that before we give something out to women, we want to ask 1,000 questions to be sure, right? We are under no pressure to make sure when we do it for men, because we automatically assume that this is to do with competency. So let me first break the myth. The lack of women in leadership is not because of the lack of competency. That's the first thing I'd like to establish, right? ऐसा तो नहीं हो सकता कि 50% के पॉपुलेशन में कॉम्पिटेंसी है, 50% में नहीं है. ऐसा तो God couldn't have gone that wrong, right? The lack of competency is the bogus argument that is given by a patriarchal world to very conveniently leave women outside. It is not about competency. It is about equal rights, equal space. Now, if you don't give women a chance, how are they going to be there? Right? It took, because they're not there because they don't want to be there. They're not there because they don't have what it takes to be there. They are not there because they are not enabled to be there. And there is a whole patriarchal system, which is the oldest living institution in the world is patriarchy. And all of patriarchy is working to keep you and me away from the parliament because it's comfortable. It's comfortable to retain power, right? And so competency is the most bogus argument because it is not the lack of competency that is driving the absence in the first place. Number two, बड़ा सिंपल सा सवाल है मेरा दुनिया से आपसे, आप मुझे पता है आई यू बिलीव इन इट बट इट इज फॉर द रेस्ट ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. फिर तो ये असम्पशन हुआ कि आज जो भी लोग जहां भी दुनिया में पार्लियामेंट में जितने मर्द बैठे तो बहुत कॉम्पिटेंट और बहुत ही स्मार्ट और बहुत ही वाइज. ये तो हमें पता है कि नहीं सच है ना? तो जब भाई तुमने 4 लोग बिठाए रखे हैं जिनमें कॉम्पिटेंसी नहीं है तो हमें भी बिठा लो यार. व्हाट इज द प्रॉब्लम इन दैट? Right? So never ever mix competency and the lack of absence for women, because that's what the world tells us to do. They say it's about you. You don't have XYZ, that's why you're not there. Right? So it's not about competency. और अगर है भी तो भाई जब तुम बैठे तो हम भी बैठ लेंगे यार. What's the bloody problem in that? There should be no problem in that, right? The lack of absence in leadership is because of lack of women in the pipeline, right? Like I said, women have choices to make, particularly about, let's talk about the apex decision-making forum of the country, which is the parliament. You need to win an election. For an election, you need family support, you need money, you need political buy-in, you need to be out there. Now, imagine the number of choices. Imagine, on one hand, this is the world saying a woman who comes back home, puts her kids to sleep, is giving food, always available, is the good woman. On the other hand, a good politician is somebody who's there out serving the world, tending to the needs of the community, is campaigning, is building. These are in direct contrasts. और ये contrast जो है आपको हर जगह मिलेगा. A good boss stays at work, does this, does that. A good mom does this, does that, and they're in contrast. So we have very conveniently built a good profile of bosses, politicians, leaders, which is in direct contrast to the stereotypical definitions we've built around good women. Now, here it's going to take you a very fierce women, and I'm really glad that today's parliament sees more than 11 of those as ministers, right? This is one of the most gender-balanced cabinets we've had in the history of India. We've had them before too, but I'm really glad that you and I are living in a time like this, right? And we must continue this. So for me, the reservation bill is a very, very important, difficult tool to table and say this is time for us to bring more women in. And sometimes as a woman, it is not about breaking the ceiling. It's about opening the doors from the inside. Right? And I think that's what a reservation bill is. It is opening the door from the inside. It is not breaking. Breaking ceiling हम कर लेंगे. हमें की कोई नहीं चाहिए. We'll break the ceiling if we have to. But if you close the door from the outside, you've got to open it. Right? And that's what tools like the reservation are. And India is a very fortunate and blessed country to have enough experience of the 73rd and the 74th Amendment of the Constitution that brings in women in reservation by choice. And today, that 33% has automatically gone up to 50% and more than 19 or 20 of our states. So it has to be competence. If something is working for women, it is their competence, it is their confidence, it is their ability. And someone has to open the doors from the inside, and I believe in that. So it's a very, very important and a very intelligent question that you asked. and I'm really glad that you asked it, because we are taught to look down on reservation as if we are taking an opportunity from those who deserve merit to give it to the ones who don't have merit. और इसमें automatic assumption ये है कि महिलाएं don't have merit, right? So we have to question the very basis of that. This is not about giving merit to those who don't have merit. This is about giving merit to those who deserve merit, right? And that's what the reservation is.
Thank you so much for that answer, Ms. Nishtha. And I'd like to mention that since childhood, if any woman tries to take up leadership, she's termed as bossy and manipulative.
हाँ.
And those terms are
Difficult. मुझे तो बहुत बोला जाता है. तुम difficult हो. मुझे बड़ा मजा आता है सुन के.
So yes, Aman, I have heard male politicians direct such sexist comments at top female politicians in our country, directing comments about their looks when they are there standing as competent leaders. So I absolutely get your point. And the fact that it has been disputed for so long, the Women's Reservation Bill was introduced a long time ago and it's still being contested. So we hope we're able to see that change soon.
Yeah, hopefully. You guys will see it in your time, I promise you. I think we're very close to that as a country. And it's also about the fact that, if the fact that students are asking for it, you are the largest vote bank of the upcoming vote bank of the country. Well, you're in 9th grade, so you wouldn't have cast your first vote, but you soon will. And I'm telling you, it's such a moment of glory. बहुत selfies लेना अपनी उस दिन, because that's really the biggest contribution you will ever make to the country. And when you are casting your vote, learn to demand for what will make your country a better place.
Thank you so much.
Well, I would like to ask the participants to keep it short because we're running short of time. And Nishtha, you have established yourself as a brazen feminist, and it's so encouraging to see our Indian youth reach new heights and go places. So I would like to ask Ridhima to pose the final question for today. Ridhima, please go ahead with your question.
So Nishtha ma'am, as we know that women are now becoming more aware, just like you mentioned, Miss Seema, they are becoming more aware and are excelling in whichever field they step in. But despite this, women are often doubted for their capabilities and are sometimes not even accepted as equal workers. So
Yes.
how, according to you, can these stereotypes be demolished in order to pave way for a more gender equal world?
नहीं, अगर मुझे पता होता कि कैसे हो सकता है, मैं अभी कर चुकी होती. तो unfortunately there is no silver bullet for deconstructing stereotypes, because we're not talking about one night, we're not talking about a couple of years, we're talking about centuries. Like I said, we're talking about the oldest living institution of the world. It's going to take time. So there are three things that I think are going to be important for this conversation. Let me be quick about it because Megha has been reminding me of falling short of time. It's first going to take all of us, right? So you have to speak about it, I have to speak about it, Megha has to speak about it. It's going to take all of us to say it all the time. ऐसा नहीं कि आज बोला, कल नहीं बोला, फिर परसों बोला, it doesn't matter, let's continue. Three, it's going to take all of us all the time, and it's going to take us to do it together, right? I think those are the three ways we are going to be able to even break the body, challenge gender stereotypes. But for men and women your age, the first thing you can do is to challenge gender stereotypes in your household. It's a lot of fun, it's a lot of argument, but sometimes we influence our parents' thinking. And it's not wrong that they're thinking that way. They have been brought up that way. They have been told that's the right thing to say. And they're trying to make sure that you have a comfortable life going forward, right? So challenging gender stereotypes in the household, challenging gender stereotypes within your friends, right? Sometimes there's a sexist joke and we're standing there, and I've done it so many times, we've just laughed along because no one to look that uncool standing there saying kya bakwas hai, like everybody tells me apna andolonकारी घर पे छोड़ के आओ, office में छोड़ के आओ. But you have to be andolonकारी everywhere, right? Because this is about you. There's nothing more important to you, and there's nothing more important to this world than the equality of 50% of the damn population, right? 50%, half the world. Trust me, if this was about the other half of the world, we would have solved it by now, right? And so it's going to take all of you, and it's going to take you to do it all the time. It's going to take you to do it together. There are some things where we must rise above our differences. It doesn't matter what a Manna thinks of her Ridhima and whether you get along. But if she's in a group where there is a sexist comment about you, she must stand up and say, you know what? I don't like her, but I'm not going to take this because this is about me. Right? So make the personal, make the political personal. And at the moment you take it up personally, you're not just taking it up for you. You're taking it up for your friends, you're taking it up for your mothers, your sisters, your brothers. And let's also remind ourselves that men too are a victim of gender stereotypes. You know, today, if men want to sit at home, not do anything, take care of the babies, they have a lot of explanation. If their tones of masculinity, if they're not banging the doors, abusing, doing things, having biceps, they have a lot of explanation. So this is not just about letting us off the cage. This is also about letting them off the cage. This is about letting the entire spectrum of gender people who identify with different sexualities, different genders out of the cage. So this is a golden cage for everyone. Of course, it works far lesser for us. And so it's seen as a woman's issue. But three things: do it all the time, do it together, and do it for each other. Because that is fraternity building. And on this issue, we must all rise above our personal differences and say, we're going to change the world because it matters to all of us, not because it's interpersonal, but it is personal. It's not interpersonal, but it's personal. So Ridhima, I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, ma'am. And I agree that it is going to take time and we all have to stand up for it.
And it's always not pleasant. Huh? हम लोगों को लगता change is never pleasant. Actually, हम लोगों को सिखाया जाता है कि change करते रहो तो उस पूरे change में सब हंसते रहेंगे, सब खुश होंगे. You've got to keep everybody happy through change. No, change is not pleasant. Change is unpleasant. Change is offensive. And sometimes we are not seen as the right people because we are making that change, right? But intention matters. And sometimes I have taken in my personal life a very unnecessary burden of appearing offensive sometimes. But it's okay to be the bad person because you're doing the good deed. So fight the good fight with all that you have.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely agree. And thank you so much for the answer.
Yeah, the core issue is that, Nishtha, that for some strange reason in India, the respect factor has still not entered the domain of gender equality. Anyways, thanks for that, Nishtha. And it was a pleasure listening to you and your inputs on gender equality and empowerment, and more power to us. I would like to ask Manna to say a few words at the end.
Yes, ma'am. With this, sadly, we have come to the end of this interview. And thank you so much. As you saw, all of the editorial board members had such a great time interacting with you. And I'm sure even the audience who logged in for this live stream would have learned so much and enjoyed this interview a lot. We would also like to express our gratitude to those who logged in for this Facebook live stream. And we hope that all of you have a great day ahead.
Thank you, Mannat. Thank you, Devyani, Nilotma, Mika, Ridhima, Amya. I have to tell you, I'm very, very proud of all of you. I'm very happy to have seen all of you. I miss my uniform days when I see you. It used to be so much more easier to wear a uniform than to turn up in a sari most times. God bless you all. Wishing you Godspeed. Remember, be fierce, be loud, be difficult. Please be difficult and be crazy. And the times when someone tells you that you're being difficult and you're being crazy, I can almost assure you that you're on the right path. That you're doing the right thing, and support each other as women, not today, but forever to come, right? We need more sisterhood in the making. We need to be there for each other as women first. And wishing you Godspeed, one of you. God bless you. It is delighted my heart to be speaking to younger girls. Such wonderful smiles. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter. We can have a chat wherever we can, but keep the flag high. and keep fighting the good fight. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nishtha.
Thank you, everybody. Dream big. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.